Welcome back to the Tabletop Game Design Challenge. This is a set of 6 challenges which takes you from first ideas to polished prototype. We're going to go through one of these challenges together. Let's look at making a prototype. You'll remember that last time we came up with some ideas. There was a long list where I wrote down the suggestions for the theme using red pen, then suggestions for the mechanics using a blue pen. The game idea which came out of that process was for a game where there were robot hoovers. Some of the hoovers were game players, some were part of the game, you didn't know which was which. You moved not just one hoover, but multiple hoovers per turn. There would be some way to score points, maybe when the hoovers got to particular places, maybe when they made particular patterns. The thought was that this would be quite a quick game with lots of chaos. So, the next stage is the prototype. Now, for this, my son joined me, so he's the hands you can see in this. The first step was to take 2 pieces of paper, just normal A4 bits of paper. We cut them into strips. Then we made spaces within some of those strips. We then laid them out so they were like different floors, like a cross-section of a building. We also put lifts between the floors so that the robot hoovers could get from one floor to another. We used the pieces from Caverna. Now, this game has loads of pieces, but we just used the big round markers. Then my son said he wanted to use the little sheds. We were using those to be docking stations, which is something we hadn't thought of during the previous video, but there they were, so we thought we'd give them a go. The food tokens became points tokens simply because there were loads of them. We then took some cards where we drew on them some patterns for where the hoovers would be to score points. We thought that maybe it didn't need to be the whole group of 7 hoovers, maybe just 3 or 4 of the hoovers. Maybe the number of points that you scored per claimed card depended on the number of hoovers which were in the right places. But again, this was just going with something right there. We also wrote down some little numbers which we placed upon the spaces, which didn't include docking stations, just because it felt like the game needed something there. We played a couple of rounds of this. No one won because we hadn't worked out what a winning condition would be, but we tried moving 3 hoovers per turn, 1 hoover 1 space, then the second hoover 2 spaces, then the third hoover 3 spaces. We decided that when a hoover landed where a number was, then the hoover would score that number of points, but they'd go to the docking station to be collected later. So that's what the first prototype looked like. This is really rough, but it gives me some idea of where to go from here. To be honest, there were more questions that it threw up than it answered. And that's not a bad thing, because the next stage will be about changing this prototype. Nonetheless, this first prototype, the get it down on paper prototype, really works to just solidify the ideas, to make them slightly more real, to give you something to work with. So, give it a go with some of the ideas that you have. You might want to use buttons, you might want to use pens, you might have dice, you'll probably want to use paper. You should be able to make something from what you've got at home. You don't need fancy extra stuff. Just as a reminder, the Tabletop Game Design Challenge runs until the 31st of August. We are accepting submissions from people who are 7 to 16 based in the UK. However, there are templates which are free to download no matter your age, no matter where you live. So, do have a go and see what you can design.